Carly and welcome back to Farmer Analytics. Tonight we are going to start pulling some of our potatoes. They are looking like they are dying back, specifically this middle variety. And this variety is Purple Viking, German Butterball, Purple Viking, and Soya. And these three varieties are kind of new to us. We have tried the Soya through a friend that grows them, and we absolutely fell in love with them. So we said that we needed to grow them ourselves. So that one we definitely grew this year. And then we really wanted to try the Purple Viking and the German Butterball as well. We always kind of like to play around with different varieties every year just to see what we can grow well here in Vermont. And if we find a variety that grows really well, we stick with it. So we planted these back in April, and they grew about this tall, and slowly over the past couple weeks we've seen them really die back and kind of fall to the ground. We want to pull them off of the bean row that they are currently trying to smother and get these potatoes out of the ground. This one we're going to start with because it's a little more dead looking than this one. This one's still kind of hanging in there, so we're going to give it a little bit more time to die back. But we'll start here. It basically goes from my shovel to the post down there, and we'll see how many potatoes we can get out of this section. We basically have planted a single row of about 50 feet in this greenhouse. We have noticed over the past couple years that our potatoes grow really well in the greenhouse compared to outside. We grew them out in the outdoor garden last year and had a horrible time with slugs, potato beetles, you name it. They just annihilated the potatoes in 6 different ways. So we went back to growing them in the greenhouse, and we really didn't have much bug pressure in here, which was really exciting. But we'll keep an eye out for slugs and make sure that they haven't gotten to them underground. All right, so let's get digging. Woohoo! You can see some of the potatoes that are still stuck to this root system. I just stuck my finger right in this squishy one. This is actually the seed potato. You can see it. Ooh, and it's pretty disgusting, but it's still there. But it basically rots away as the rest of the potato continues to grow. But we have some little potatoes here. Purple Viking is, as the name implies, purple, and it's actually white flesh inside. I'm pretty happy with the size of these. And last year, with all that pest pressure and pressure with the slugs, not only were they just annihilated by the slugs, just eaten into, but we had really small potatoes. When you really mess with the leaves, and that's really where they're getting all their energy from, you can see there's a little bit of bug damage on these leaves too, but they for the most part did really well holding up against bugs. We're organic, so we don't use anything against the bugs, so we just kind of deal with what we get and keep an eye on it and make sure it's not killing the plants. But last year's plants really took some hard hits from the bug pressure, and consequently the potatoes were really small. So when we're not getting many potatoes coming up with the actual plant itself, that's actually a good sign that we've left those potatoes in long enough for them to kind of harden that skin and be ready to pull. We're going through, we are pulling up all the potato plants, so you can actually see a trail at this point of where the plants were. And we haven't pulled any potatoes out yet, but we will. And I'm just kind of cleaning up the weeds. We definitely had a lot of weed pressure come through since everything was dying back and so big and bushy back here. So I'm going to finish clearing this up a little bit, and then we'll start actually harvesting the potatoes and putting them into the basket. I think we're going to start at the beginning of this row and start digging. So not a lot of people like using a shovel when you do this because you really risk cutting straight through a potato. And we do it because our soil is so hard. So it makes it easier for us. There's no way I'm going to get my hands to dig through the soil. And we don't have a potato fork. Whoa. Look at that one. You can actually still see some of the fertilizer we put in here. Pieces of clamshell. There's a whole bunch of it right here. Oh, casualty. That's a seed potato. So we accidentally hit this one with the shovel, and you can see how white these are inside, even though they have this purple flesh. We've dug through this whole section of the row for the purple Vikings, and this is what we've finished with. It's, if I had to guess, probably 30 pounds worth of potatoes. And for this specific variety, we started with about 5 pounds of seed potatoes. Normally it's expected to start with 10% of your total yields. So if you start with 5 pounds, you'd expect about 50 pounds. I don't think we quite reached 50 pounds, but I'm so happy with the size of these potatoes. I would take this size potatoes over small potatoes any day because first of all, it's easier to peel when you're cooking. And it's also a better size just to make dinner for 4. Really happy with the size of these potatoes. Let's check out how the next row came out. Oh, so this variety is Soya, and we're gonna dig these up next. So I'm gonna go through and pull all the plants out, all the weeds that I can get, and make us some room to dig. So we're clearing the Soya bed, and this is a great example of a potato that has been eaten by some sort of pest. In the past, like I said, we've had trouble with slugs. This might be something else. I don't see any pests currently on it, but it is eaten. So here's our Soyas. We've cleared back all the mess so you can see kind of where our row goes and where some of our potatoes are already. These little guys love potatoes. Digging potatoes is one of my favorite things to do. It's kind of like digging for gold. So I found another potato with some chew marks on it, and now that I'm looking at it, this could actually be a rodent rather than a bug or a slug. But we find that we have more trouble with the yellow-skinned potatoes here in Vermont with pest pressure. We're also noticing that so far our yellow potatoes, or our Soyas, are much smaller than our purple Vikings. And this can be a decision factor for us for what we grow next year. Another one bites the dust to some type of pest or rodent. And yeah, here on our Vermont farm, every place, even in Vermont, has its own microclimate, but we are not doing so well with these white potatoes so far. Finally, some decent sized Soyas. This potato is almost completely eaten and gone. We have completely dug both sides, or both varieties of potatoes. We are losing daylight. It is almost 9 o'clock, so we're going to call it quits for tonight. But we did complete both the Soya and the Purple Viking potato varieties, and they actually came out, even though I was complaining about the size of the Soyas, they actually came out to almost exactly the same amount of potatoes in the baskets. Just these are much larger overall than, most of these on average are about this size. So I still think I would prefer a larger potato overall, just because we are going to be canning most of these. So we are going to be doing a lot of peeling, and the peeling on these are not as fun as peeling these. So these are easier to process. We will come back out another day for the last variety, which is actually a much smaller section. It's only 2.5 pounds that we planted, so it's a shorter row. It still looks a little bit more alive than these two did, so we'll leave it for a couple more days and come back and do a final comparison.